The crystal spires of Harmony's edge glittered like frozen lightning against the void, their reflective surfaces casting prismatic shards of light across the orbital station's grand concourse. The Galactic Concordium Hall loomed at its heart, a monument to unity, or so its architects claimed. Today, it would serve as the stage for a farce. Captain Elias Voss stood at attention, his formal dress uniform straining across shoulders that had carried the weight of 3 wars. The fabric itched, the polished metals clinked softly with every measured breath. Around him, delegates from 100 species floated, slithered, or strode through the vaulted chamber. Their murmurs a symphony of clicks, growls, and harmonic vibrations. None spared him more than a glance. A Zephyrian diplomat, Ambassador Krellis, unfolded himself from his hovering podium, chitinous plates rasping as 4 manipulator arms gestured toward the central hologram. The projection flickered to life, displaying a rotating emblem of the Concordium, a circle of intertwined species symbols. Humanity's sigil, a blue marble wreathed in olive branches, hung smaller than the rest. The motion to revoke Terra's standing military privileges is now before this assembly, Krellis announced, his voice a smug vibration. The evidence is incontrovertible. The hologram shifted. Grainy footage of ancient human conflicts played, trenches, atom bombs, burning cities. Laughter rippled through the chamber, a cerulean delegate pulsed with bioluminescent amusement, tendrils undulating. Such quaint violence, it chimed, like hatchlings squabbling over nest space. Elias' knuckles whitened. He kept his face neutral. Krellis tapped a claw against the podium. The Concordium recognizes that young species require guidance, but humanity's persistent aggression, even against itself, proves they lack the discipline for interstellar warfare. His faceted eyes glinted as they settled on Elias. Your kind has never known true war, only petty squabbles over dirt. More laughter. Elias exhaled through his nose. A Vorak ambassador, scales gleaming like oil, rose on muscular hind legs. Let us not be cruel, it rumbled. The humans mean well, but their ships are slow, their weapons primitive. Why should they stand among warriors? The hologram zoomed in on Earth's military archives, comparative tonnage of human fleets versus the Concordium's dreadnoughts. The numbers were laughable. Elias watched as Krellis' mandibles twitched in what passed for a grin among Zephyrians. The vote is unanimous, Krellis declared. Terra's military privileges are hereby suspended pending review. For their own safety, of course. The chamber erupted in polite applause. Elias didn't move. A commotion at the rear doors silenced the room. Commander Lian Zhao strode in, her black uniform stark against the pastel hues of alien robes. She carried a data slate like a weapon. "Captain," she said, ignoring the stares, "you want to see this." Elias took the slate. The screen showed a single line of text, flagged with US and Titan's encryption sigil. "All stations report ready, awaiting your signal." He handed it back. "Thank you, Commander." Krellis tilted his head. Some last appeal. Human, a plea for mercy. Elias adjusted his cufflinks. "No, Ambassador, just a reminder." He turned to face the assembly, his voice quiet but carrying. "You're right, we don't know your wars, but you've never known ours." The hologram flickered again, not by Krellis' command. New footage replaced the sanitized clips, Stalingrad's frozen corpses. The firestorms of Tokyo, the Martian uprising's orbital bombardment, silence. "These weren't battles," Elias said. "They were survival." He tapped his insignia, and the Titan's battle standard flared to life above him, a silver warship wrapped in thorns. "You voted us weak. Pray you never see us angry." The chamber stayed dead quiet as he walked out. Behind him, Zhao smirked. "Signal the Titan." Elias didn't look back. Let them sweat a while. The US and Titan hung in the void like a sleeping predator, its battle-scarred hull absorbing the faint starlight. Unlike the gleaming Concordium warships patrolling the inner system, the human dreadnought, bore the marks of 1,000 engagements. Carbon scoring along its flanks, patched armor plating, and the faint shimmer of reactive nano, coating still healing old plasma burns. Inside the bridge, the air hummed with suppressed energy, the crew moving with the quiet efficiency of those who had fought together for years. Commander Lin Zhao's fingers danced across her tactical display, holographic projections of the Concordium fleet flickering above her console. The alien armada was a spectacle of arrogance, sleek, shielded vessels arranged in perfect formation, their energy signatures bright enough to blind passive sensors. She smirked as her system tagged each ship with estimated weak points. Obsolescence has its advantages, she muttered. A shadow fell across her display. Lieutenant Dravik of the Vorak Observer Corps loomed over her, his reptilian pupils slitted in amusement. His scaled hands clasped behind his back, the ceremonial sash of his office swaying as he tilted his head, still relying on projectile weapons. Commander Dravik's voice was a dry rasp, the universal translator flattening his mocking tone. How quaint. Zhao didn't look up. Railguns work just fine. Dravik chuckled, a sound like grinding stones. No shields, no plasma lances, just metal slugs hurled through space. He gestured to the holograms of Concordium battleships, their shimmering energy barriers glowing like second skins. You humans cling to relics while the galaxy advances. This time, Zhao turned, her dark eyes locking onto his. Funny, last I checked. Relics don't punch holes through dreadnoughts. Dravik's crest flared slightly. A tell shed learned meant irritation. Shields neutralize kinetics. Any first-year cadet knows this. Zhao tapped a command into her console. The display zoomed in on a Concordium cruiser, its shield harmonics pulsing in steady rhythm. See that fluctuation? Your fancy shields cycle every feifei seconds to avoid overheating. A relic, she emphasized the word, doesn't need to cycle before Dravik could retort. The bridge doors hissed open. Captain Elias Voss strode in, his presence cutting through the tension like a blade. His formal uniform was gone, replaced by the worn fatigues of a frontline officer. The scar along his jaw, a souvenir from the Europa blockade, twisted as he smirked. Lieutenant, Elias nodded at Dravik, enjoying the tour. Dravik straightened, though he still had to look up at the human captain. Your vessel is educational, Elias chuckled, moving to stand beside Zhao. His voice dropped, just loud enough for the Vorak to hear. They always underestimate the Titan. Zhao's lips quirked. They think we're harmless. On the main view screen, the Concordium fleet began their maneuvers, ships weaving in intricate patterns meant to showcase their coordination. Dravik gestured proudly. That is modern warfare. Precision, elegance. Elias crossed his arms. War isn't elegant. Lieutenant, it's ugly, it's loud, and it's fast. He nodded to Zhao, show him. Zhao's fingers flew across her console. A new hologram bloomed, a simulation of the Titan's last engagement. The playback was raw, unfiltered, a Zephyrian cruiser, shields at full, vaporized in a single railgun strike. The tungsten slug hit during the shield cycle, punching clean through armor, reactor, and out the other side. The explosion lit up the dark like a dying star. Dravik's crest flattened against his skull. That, Elias said quietly, was a warning shot. Silence settled over the bridge. Even the hum of the Titan's engines seemed to quiet. Dravik finally found his voice. You meant to miss the core. Elias turned back to the view screen, watching the Concordium ships dance. We don't need shields when we strike first. Zhao leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. And we always strike first. Dravik said nothing. His claws flexed, retracted. On the screen, the alien fleet continued their maneuvers, blissfully unaware of the predator lurking in the dark. Elias' smile didn't reach his eyes. Let them think we're harmless. The asteroid field of Sigma Draconis glittered like shattered diamonds against the black velvet of space. Hundreds of warships from a dozen species hung motionless, their polished hulls reflecting the distant sun. The USN Titan drifted among them, its battle, scarred grey plating looking dull and primitive next to the gleaming alien armadas. Admiral Vexis's voice crackled over the fleet-wide comm, her gelatinous body pulsing with amusement inside her flagship's transparent command sphere. Vegan Wargame Simulation Theta 9. All participants assume standard engagement protocols. Her tentacles danced across holographic controls. Human contingent, observe and learn. On the Titan's bridge, Ensign Rook's knuckles whitened around her control yoke. They're not even giving us a starting position, sir. Her voice wavered slightly. Are we just supposed to watch? Commander Zhao finished, her lips curling. She tapped a sequence into her console. Let them have their parade. The view screen lit up as the alien fleet sprang into action. Cerulean battleships moved in perfect synchronized formations, their energy shields flaring blue as they exchanged harmless training pulses. Xaperian cruisers performed elaborate flanking maneuvers, their chitinous hulls rippling with bioluminescent pride. It was beautiful. It was pointless. Lieutenant Dravik chuckled from his observer's station, his reptilian tongue flicking between serrated teeth. You see now, human, this is true warfare, precision discipline, not your primitive brawling. Captain Voss didn't turn from the tactical display. Pretty. His callous finger traced a path through the asteroid field. Zhao, that corridor we scouted yesterday. Already locked in, sir. Zhao's fingers flew across her panel. Railgun batteries 1 through 12 charged to simulation levels. Dravik's crest flared. Your pathetic kinetic weapons cannot. Fire. Space tore open. 12 tungsten rods, each the length of an ancient Earth skyscraper, screamed across the void at AC. They struck Vexis's flagship in perfect sequence, bow to stern, punching through energy shields like they weren't there. The holographic simulation flared crimson as damage assessments flooded every ship's display. Total catastrophic kill. Flagship eliminated in opening salvo. The comm channels erupted. Impossible. Our shields. They weren't even targeting our weak. How did they? Voss keyed the fleet-wide channel. Silence fell like a guillotine. Admiral Vexis, you might want to recall that your navigation computer broadcasts its position every 3 seconds. Standard Cerulean Fleet protocol. He leaned forward. We noticed. On screen, the remaining alien ships scrambled, their beautiful formations collapsing into chaos. The Titan's engines flared as she slid into the shadow of a massive asteroid. All ships, new firing solutions. Zhao announced calmly. Borak command vessel now. Another volley, another explosion of simulated death. Dravik was on his feet, his scales flushing dark purple. This is not honorable engagement. You strike without warning, without honor. Voss finally turned. His smile didn't reach his eyes. This isn't a duel, Lieutenant. It is war. The Titan shuddered as an energy blast grazed her port side. Rook gasped. Sir, 3 Xaperian cruisers breaking from the main. Evasive pattern gamma, Voss said without raising his voice. And Rook breathed. The young ensign gulped air as the Titan pivoted sharply, her retro thrusters flaring. The Xaperian ships overshot, their plasma cannons slicing uselessly through empty space. Zhao's console chimed. Cerulean battle group attempting to flank. They're using the asteroids for cover. Voss nodded. Right where we want them. Deploy mines. A dozen canisters ejected from the Titan's belly, their magnetic clamps latching onto nearby asteroids. The alien ships never saw them coming. Simulated explosions blossomed across the tactical display as the mines detonated in perfect sequence. Dravik's claws dug into his console. You seeded the field beforehand. That is cheating. Voss raised an eyebrow. It is Tuesday. On the main screen, the remaining alien ships flailed, their commanders shouting conflicting orders. The Titan moved among them like a shark through panicked fish, her railguns speaking in sharp, precise bursts. Rook's voice steadied. Sir, Arcturan battleship decloaking at R6. Voss didn't even blink. Cut main engines, vent port thrusters. Now the Titan spun violently just as the Arcturian vessel unleashed its main cannon. The searing energy beam missed by meters. Countermeasures, Voss said. Zhao pressed a single button. The Titan's point, defense systems, spat a cloud of tungsten pellets into the beam's path. Superheated metal vaporized instantly, creating a momentary occlusion. Rook, Voss said quietly. Fire at the bloom. The ensign's shot was perfect. The railgun round punched through the dissipating energy cloud straight into the Arcturian ship's exposed cannon housing. The simulated explosion lit up the view screen. Silence settled over the bridge. The tactical display showed nothing but drifting wreck markers and the lone, unscathed human dreadnought. Vexis's voice crackled over the comm. All amusement gone. Captain Voss. This was a training exercise. Oh, a simulation. Voss keyed the response channel. His voice was soft, deadly. No, Admiral, this was a lesson. Outside, the Titan's railguns hummed as they cycled fresh rounds. Targeting lasers painted every remaining alien ship in the system, waiting. The battlefield hung in eerie silence, broken only by the occasional groan of twisted metal from crippled alien warships. The Titan drifted like a specter through the wreckage, her railgun barrels still glowing cherry, red from the single shot that had shattered Admiral Vex's flagship. Inside the bridge, Elias Voss watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction as panic transmissions flooded every frequency. All Concordium vessels, this is Admiral Vexis. Cease fire immediately. The humans have. The Cerulean's voice cut off abruptly as another human railgun round punched through a second capital ship, reducing it to spinning debris. Lieutenant Dravik, the Vorak observer, had gone utterly still, his reptilian pupils dilated in shock. You fired live ammunition, he rasped. This was supposed to be a simulation. Commander Zhao didn't look up from her console. We simulated nothing. Her fingers danced across the holographic interface. Target lock maintained on remaining hostile forces, Admiral. Elias leaned forward in his command chair, the dim red lighting carving shadows across his face. Open a channel to the Concordium flagship. A hologram flickered to life above the central console, revealing Ambassador Krellis. The Zephyrian's chitinous plates quivered, his four manipulator arms twitching in agitation. Captain Voss, explain this outrage immediately. You violated every protocol. No, Elias interrupted, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of a starship's hull. This was never about protocols. This was about respect. Krellis' mandibles clattered. Respect, you've destroyed 3 capital ships. The Council will listen, Elias said. He nodded to Zhao. Across the battlefield, every functioning alien display screen flickered to life. Ancient footage rolled, grainy black, and white images of trenches stretching to the horizon, of cities reduced to skeletal ruins, of mushroom clouds boiling into stratospheres. What is this? Krellis hissed. Earth, Elias said. Circafay population loss, 70 million. The footage changed, a Martian colony dome collapsing under artillery fire, orbital platforms burning as they fell. Mars uprising, Fey casualties, 12 million. More images flashed, entire fleets gutted in the void. Soldiers in powered armor fighting through radioactive wastelands. The solar purge, Fey estimated dead, 500 million. The alien bridge crews had gone deathly still. A Cerulean tactical officer floated limply in its gel, tank bioluminescence pulsing erratically. Vex's voice crackled over the comm, weaker now. You kept records of these atrocities. Elias' smile didn't reach his eyes. We learned from them. The footage changed again. Human ships outnumbered 10-1, fighting in perfect synchronization. A dreadnought rammed an enemy flagship at full burn. A single cruiser held a jump point against an entire armada. This is why we don't need your energy shields. This is why we don't fight like you. Krellis took an involuntary step back as the footage showed a human marine. Just one, standing atop a pile of alien corpses, his armor cracked and bleeding, still firing. "You're monsters," the ambassador whispered. "No," Elias said. "We're survivors," he straightened. "And we've survived worse than you." On the view screen, the Titan's railguns hummed as they realigned. Targeting lasers painted every remaining Concordium vessel. "You wanted to see humanity's true face?" Elias asked softly. "Look closer." The alien fleet recoiled as one, their perfect formations shattered like glass. The grand chamber of the Galactic Concordium had never known such silence. The holographic displays that normally showed diplomatic proceedings now flickered with horrors the assembled species could scarcely comprehend. Elias Voss stood at the center of it all, his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the images played out. Stalingrad in winter, human soldiers starving, freezing, yet still fighting. The Pacific Theater where men drowned in steel coffins rather than surrender. The Martian uprising, where orbital strikes turned red sands to glass. And still, the rebels fought on. Ambassador Krellis's mandibles twitched uncontrollably, his chitinous plates rattling. This is impossible. No civilized species would what? Elias interrupted, his voice calm, almost conversational. Endure, adapt, survive? He gestured to the displays. This is just a fraction of it. We didn't show you the world wars, the collapse years, the times we turned our own planet into a graveyard and still crawled out of the ashes. Voxler, the Arcturian delegate, pulsed with erratic bioluminescence, his tendrils coiled tight. You bred warriors." His voice was a whisper, as if speaking too loud might summon something terrible. Elias smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "No, we bred survivors. Warriors are what happens when survival isn't guaranteed." A cerulean admiral, one of Vexus's subordinates, floated forward, his gelatinous form trembling. "You hide this savagery behind diplomacy, behind your treaties and trade agreements?" Lian Zhao, still linked via comms from the Titan, snorted over the open channel. "We call it restraint." Krellis slammed a manipulator arm onto the podium, the crack echoing through the chamber. "This is deception. The Concordium voted based on your supposed instability. But this," he gestured wildly at the screens, "this is madness." Elias didn't move. "You voted to revoke our standing because you thought we were weak, because our wars were small." He tilted his head. "Tell me, Ambassador, how many of your people have died in war?" Krellis hesitated. "The Zephyrian Collective has not known large-scale conflict in 7 generations. Elias nodded. "Exactly." He turned to the rest of the chamber. "How many of your species have fought a war where surrender wasn't an option, where extinction was the only alternative to victory?" Silence, the Vorak observer. Dravik shifted uncomfortably. His kind prided themselves on their martial prowess, but even they had limits. "You are saying your people would fight to the last?" Elias didn't blink. "We have many times." A new hologram flickered to life, a grainy ancient recording. A human soldier, wounded, standing alone against a tide of enemies. His rifle was empty. He picked up a rock. The chamber watched, transfixed as he swung. Voxler's bioluminescence dimmed. "This is not war. This is desperation." Elias's smile faded. "No, this is humanity." He tapped a control, and the displays shifted again, this time to the Titan's current position. The dreadnought hung in space, its railguns humming, targeting solutions locked onto every major alien vessel in the system. "You wanted to see our military capabilities," Elias said softly. "Here they are. One ship, outdated, by your standards. Obsolete, even." He leaned forward. "And yet, right now, we could reduce every fleet here to scrap, before you even raised your shields. You wouldn't dare." Elias didn't answer. Instead, he nodded to Zhao. On the Titan's bridge, Zhao flicked a switch across the system. Human stealth ships decloaked, dozens of them positioned perfectly behind the alien armadas. Their weapons powered up in unison. The chamber erupted into panic. Delegates shouted, some reaching for comms, others simply frozen in horror. Elias waited until the noise died down. Then, very quietly, he said, "We've played by your rules long enough." Voxler's tendrils quivered. "What do you want?" Elias straightened. "Respect." He glanced at the displays, at the history of blood and fire humanity had carved into the stars. Not as equals, not as peers. His eyes hardened, as the ones who survived. The silence that followed was heavier than gravity. Krellis looked at the tactical displays, at the Titan's guns, at the stealth ships poised to strike. Then, with a shuddering breath, he reached for the voting console. The Concordium's decision flashed across every screen in the chamber. Unanimous human military status reinstated. No one laughed this time. The silence stretched across the void like a held breath. Every alien ship in the Sigma Draconis system had frozen in place, their pristine formations shattered. The wreckage of Admiral Vex's flagship still tumbled through space, a grim testament to human engineering. On the bridge of the USN Titan, Commander Zhao's fingers hovered over the tactical display, her dark eyes reflecting the crimson glow of 100 target locks. "All railguns charged and tracking," she reported, her voice calm. "Stealth fleet reports optimal firing positions." Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. The holographic feed from the Concordium showed Ambassador Krellis's chitinous face twitching, his four manipulator arms frozen mid-gesture. The Zephyrian's voice crackled through the comms, his usual condescension replaced by something raw. You wouldn't dare fire on Concordium vessels. This is madness." Elias didn't blink. "You declared our military obsolete. You mocked our history." He leaned forward slightly, the scars on his face catching the dim light. "Now you see what obsolete looks like?" On the view screen, the alien armada shimmered with activated shields, their formations tightening defensively. The Cerulean command ship pulsed with frantic energy, Admiral Vex's translucent body rippling with agitation. "Captain Voss," the jellyfish-like alien transmitted, their voice trembling, "this aggression will see your species exiled from civilized space." Lieutenant Dravik, the hulking Vorak observer, let out a derisive snort from his station. "Look at them. They're scrambling like hatchlings who just saw their first predator." His reptilian eyes gleamed. "I almost feel bad for them." Zhao smirked. "Almost." Her fingers danced across her console. "Captain, the Revenant and Mjolnir report all stealth torpedoes locked. Their entire fleet is painted." Elias nodded slowly. "Open fleet-wide channel." The comms officer swallowed hard. "Channel open, sir. You're broadcasting to every ship in the system." Elias took a deep breath when he spoke. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "Concordium vessels. This is Captain Elias Voss of the United Earth Space Navy. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and stand down." He let the words hang, "Or we will demonstrate why humanity never needed your approval to wage war." The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted across the alien fleet. The Cerulean command ship's shields flared brighter as it attempted to retreat. Zephyrian cruisers scrambled to form defensive screens. The Arcturan battleships, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing erratically, began rotating their spinal mounts. Too slow, far too slow. 10 seconds. Zhao counted down, her voice steady. "They're not complying." Elias watched the tactical display. The Titan's railguns hummed with pent-up energy across the system. Hidden human stealth ships waited like coiled vipers. 5 seconds. Suddenly, the comms exploded with overlapping transmissions. "Stand down. All vessels, stand down." Admiral Vex's voice rose above the rest, their translucent form contracting in distress. "Cease all hostile maneuvers immediately." Krellis' face reappeared on screen, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Captain Voss." The Concordium acknowledges. The Zephyrians seemed to choke on the words. "We acknowledge your military parity." Elias didn't smile. Not parity, Ambassador, superiority. He turned to Zhao. Keep weapons hot until they've fully disengaged. On the view screen, the alien fleet began breaking formation, their weapons powering down one by one. The Cerulean flagship's shields dimmed to standby levels. The Arcturan's spinal mounts locked into neutral positions. Dravik let out a low whistle. I'll be damned, they're actually obeying. Zhao's fingers flew across her console, confirming all major hostile vessels are standing down. The Revenant reports multiple alien crews are praying, sir. Elias finally allowed himself a small, cold smile. Good. He straightened his uniform. Now let's go teach them the meaning of the word diplomacy. As the Titan moved forward, its railguns still humming, the alien ships parted before it like a school of fish before a shark. The stealth fleet remained cloaked, their presence only hinted at by the occasional flicker of distorted starlight. On the bridge of a Zephyrian cruiser, a young communications officer turned to his captain, his antennae drooping. Sir, what do we do now? The captain didn't answer immediately. His forehands clenched and unclenched as he watched the human dreadnought grow larger on their screens. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. We learn, cadet. We learn what happens when you mistake restraint for weakness. Back on the Titan, Elias turned away from the view screen. The bridge crew watched him, their expressions a mix of awe and grim satisfaction. He met each of their gazes in turn before speaking just 2 words. Bring coffee. As the crew burst into relieved laughter, the ship continued its inexorable advance toward the heart of the Concordium fleet. Behind them, hidden in the void, 100 human warships waited, silent, patient, and utterly lethal. The galaxy would remember this day, not as the day humanity proved its strength, but as the day the Concordium learned the cost of underestimating Terra's children. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Concordium had never known such silence. The crystal spires that once shimmered with the pride of 100 species now stood dull under the weight of realization. Ambassador Krellis' chitinous plates rattled faintly as he stared at the human delegation. His 4 manipulator arms hung limp at his sides, the usual condescension replaced by something alien to his kind. Fear. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the chamber, his boots planted firmly on the polished floor. He didn't need holograms or grand displays now. The wreckage of the war game still drifted in Sigma Draconis, a graveyard of alien arrogance. The Titan's railgun strike had been more than a demonstration. It had been a statement. Voxlar, the Arcturan delegate, pulsed with erratic bioluminescence. His voice, usually a melodic chime, came out strained. You bred warriors? The words weren't an accusation. They were a revelation. Elias didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply turned his gaze to the assembled delegates, each species represented in their finery, their technology, their unshakable belief in their own superiority. Until today, Krellis finally found his voice, mandibles clicking in a poor attempt at composure. You hid this savagery behind diplomacy. Elias exhaled, slow and measured. We call it restraint. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The holographic banners flickered, as if the station itself couldn't process the shift in power. Admiral Vexis, her gelatinous form still trembling from the simulated, no real destruction of her flagship, floated forward. You wouldn't dare unleash this on the galaxy. Commander Zhao's voice crackled over the comms, broadcast to the entire chamber. Try us. The words hung in the air sharp as a blade. Elias didn't need to gesture to the view screen. Every delegate already knew what it would show. The Titan's railguns, charged and ready. The stealth fleet, decloaked and positioned behind every alien armada in the system. The targeting locks painting their ships like death's own brushstrokes. Lieutenant Dravik, the hulking Vorak observer who had once sneered at human obsolete technology, now stood rigid. His reptilian eyes darted to Elias. This is madness. You'd provoke a galactic war. Elias finally moved, stepping toward the center of the chamber. His shadow stretched long across the floor. No, we're ending one before it starts. He turned to the Concordium's High Council. You revoked our standing because you thought us weak, because you believed your shields and your treaties made you untouchable. His voice dropped, cold and final. Stand down, or we'll show you why we never needed your approval. The silence that followed was thicker than neutron star matter. Then, one by one, the alien delegates began to signal their surrender. The Ceruleans retracted their tentacles in submission. The Superians lowered their manipulator arms. The Arcturans dimmed their bioluminescence to near darkness. Krellis was the last. His mandibles worked silently before he finally spoke. The words dripping with bitter realization. What are you? Elias turned to leave, his officers falling in behind him over his shoulder. He answered. The ones who survived. The Concordium vote was unanimous. Humanity's military status was reinstated. There was no laughter this time, no condescension. Only the quiet, terrible understanding that the galaxy had made a fatal mistake. As the Titan warped away, its scarred hull vanishing into the void, it left behind more than wreckage. It left behind a truth written in fire and tungsten. Terror doesn't breed victims, it breeds warriors.